I'd like to call the February 7th, 2023 Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Thanks everyone for joining. Our first order of business is a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't.
Anything we want to do quickly before 7:05?
We could do the minutes, yeah.
Minutes
Whoops.
from January 10th.
I gave you the 10th and the 24th.
They look good to me.
I just didn't have the agenda list out.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So on the agenda, it just says the 10th, so you want to just approve those?
Yep.
Maureen, you good with that?
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 10th, 2023.
I would second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries by unanimous action. Do you need me to sign something or is that?
No, you have already signed.
Recording. So we get on.
That was the easiest thing.
Once we started, it was set for record, so.
I like it. Very nice. Are you gonna start putting these on the website?
I want to try to figure out
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, cool. Love it, love it, love it.
Do we send that?
Yeah. We have the, is it in here? The public meeting notice?
Yes.
All right. Great.
Michael on camera is the.
This is the shore drive. Okay.
Karen?
I think so.
Do you want to read it?
I haven't found it
You
yet.
have it. I
I'm
got it.
studying something.
First.
else.
Yeah. Please be advised that the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing petitions of Massachusetts Electric Company and Verizon New England, Inc. requests for permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Shore Drive. National Grid respectfully requests permission to install new utility pole 3S0 approximately 110 feet northeast of existing pole 3 on the opposite side of the street. This is necessary to increase height of present electric and communication facilities due to the long span between pole 3 and 4 on Shore Drive. Wherefore they pray that after due notice and hearing as provided by law, it be granted joint or identical locations for and permission to erect and maintain poles and wires together with such sustaining and protecting fixtures as they may find necessary. Said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed herewith marked Massachusetts Electric Company and Verizon New England, Inc., Plan Number 28517745, dated 6/24 of 2019. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. Your petitioners agree to reserve space for one cross arm at a suitable point on each side of said poles for the fire, police, telephone, and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by it exclusively for municipal purposes at 7:05 p.m. on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 at Town Hall, 1 Main Street. Do we have someone here from National Grid? Michael.
Yes.
Do folks have any questions on this?
Whether or not it's a question Dennis and I did talk this morning about this application. Dennis, do you want to just comment as far as the status of the street?
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, if I may.
Please.
Shore Drive is a private way. It is not a town accepted road. It's not a used and maintained road. To the best of my knowledge, the road is owned by all of the residents who live upon it. So the question I have is, because I have had experience with these in the past in other communities, I don't believe the town, what the grid is asking for is permission to install and maintain utility aerial rights and underground rights. And I don't believe in this case the town has the ability to grant it because we don't own the property. Unlike all of the town accepted ways where all of their pole locations, guidelines, and whatnot are maintained within the right of way. And that is why they seek permission from the board. This is a different instance where it's a private road.
Okay.
And if I may then add on to that, and I understand it may be difficult to see this for the board. The first sentence, this is Chapter 166, Section 22, that talks about the public, the whole hearing process, versus a company designed to construct a line for such transmission upon, along, or under, or across a public way shall in right petition the Board of Aldermen of the city or Selectmen of the town. So as Dennis, our DPW director, had indicated, it being a private street, we don't have the legal jurisdiction to act on that.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in Section 22, it does talk about private ways that then become public.
Mm-hmm.
That then there's a process to review all the poles and lines that then become part of that public way. But there's nothing within that section that indicates the town needs to grant any approval for pole when it's on a private way. Okay. So therefore, Mass Electric and Verizon would realistically need to go to the individual property owners in order to get that approval. And as Mr. Westgate identified, each property owner owns to the center line, so it may be only one, it may be two, depending on the length and what exactly is needed for that pole placement.
Okay. And are there any questions? Did anybody talk to the folks at National Grid, or do they have questions about this? It's pretty standard.
We did not have an opportunity to contact National
The residents?
or the Mass Electric prior to.
Yeah, the folks that submitted the petition. Okay. Is it Michael that's on the phone? Do you have any questions, Michael?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just looking at it. Looking at the sketch that was submitted. That engineer has since retired. Usually when we go out to the town GIS site to look at stuff, if it is a private road, it usually says private road, or in this case, it actually looks like it does belong to the town. It's probably just a thing that it is private, but it didn't say it on there. It just from the sketch, it looks like it has boundaries that look like there would be the town take or sidewalks and stuff of that nature. So I'm just gonna have to bring this back to the people who are related to the job. They're gonna have to give it to the new engineer that covers that town, and find a way to meet with whoever is on record for owning that property. And I don't think there'll be an issue, but it'll make things better. I was just looking at a picture on Google, and that side of the road where normally we would probably put poles straight in line to alleviate this, there's a big rock wall that would be impossible to do this. So that span of wire is a bit too long for our current standards, and apparently there's some issues with wires being low, especially on the communications side. So we're just trying to clean it up.
Gotcha. If there's anything that you need from the town or anything else we can do once you gather your information, we're here. So please just let us know. For now, we'll close this public hearing.
Give me just 1 minute.
And then go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, before you do, I happened to drive by there earlier today. I live right around the corner, and I did happen to notice those lines are very low. I guess my question regarding this is, Michael, I don't know if you can research it on your end, or Dennis, if we can find out on our end, who originally granted the easement for the poles. Because there could be a situation, and I don't know the condition of Shore Drive, but I don't know if that at any point was a town road. If it was a municipal road and it was discontinued, I'll use Warren Street, for example, where you discontinue a section of the road. The town may have granted that easement 50 years ago. So I think that's something that we may want to look at, either, again, on the National Grid side or the municipal side. Find out who actually granted that easement, way back when it was granted. So our real
estate group will research that and see who's the records show. There could be a chance that if that pole line is fairly old, there may not have been an easement at all. I've run into a lot of circumstances of old pole lines or pole lines that were supposed to be maintained by the telephone company way back that we go to look for records and there aren't any. So we have to go back and get easements for current situations. And most of the time it's pretty good, but once in a while there's a curveball. But
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Nope.
Awesome.
Good. Okay, thank you. Close the public hearing. Thank you. Next up, we have snow and ice update from our fearless leader, Dennis Westgate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So usually this time of year, I come before the board and ask for your humble forgiveness for authorization to overspend the snow and ice account, but that is not the case tonight. As of today, the DPW responded to 8 separate snow and ice events, with 1 storm requiring assistance from hired contractors. We've received a total of 13.25 inches of snow so far this year. And I think last year around this time, we were well over 2 feet. So quite the difference. Most of the events that we have responded to have been sleet and freezing rain or black ice events. I provided the board with a breakdown showing the very first event on December 11th and the total 8 events, with the last one being on and calling hired contractors. So to get to the punchline, we have spent a total, because we have had 8 events, we have spent a total of $104,484.47 this year so far. And there is a breakdown in your packet in my memo, but you can clearly see that the majority of the money has gone to road salt. And as the board is aware, road salt, this year's bid was considerably more than last year's bid, which is just about double of 2 years ago. So last year was $62.89 a ton, and this year we're paying $76.04 a ton. So the white gold, as we call it, is increasing every single year, and we use it sparingly. We try to be careful, but sleet and freezing rain and black ice is no joke, and can send people in bad situations rather quickly. So,
Yeah.
that is my update. If the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
I would only say for folks that are interested, the snow and ice budget for the year is $260,000, and the total spent so far, as Mr. Westgate mentioned, is roughly $5,000. So we're well below, or less than half of what that budget item was in the budget for. So, questions, comments?
Just a quick question. Is there any downward pressure on the price of salt? I mean, obviously it's a quote, it's bid. So we're probably locked in for this year, but do you think in the future you see that returning back to a more manageable sum?
I hope so. We use a cooperative bid, so there is a bunch of communities that pool our efforts together in order to hit a larger number for salt requirements in order to try to get the best bid we can get. And speaking with other counties in the Commonwealth, I find that this is the price right across the boards. Everybody's paying the same thing. Salt is just very expensive.
Looks like you're up next as well for MassWorks infrastructure contract execution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board knows, the town was successful in obtaining $275,000 for a MassWorks grant, primarily through the efforts of our town manager. And the very next step was, the grant, I should say, was designed to allow the town to proceed with selecting an engineering firm and beginning the design process. And so that was the very next thing that we did. And we solicited Ty and Bond, as they have been working with Governor's Landing all along, to give us a price quote on how far the $275,000 could take us. It was the initial hopes of the state and ourselves to at least hit 25% design. You have a copy of their proposal in your package, and you can see that they reached 100% design. So for the 275, Ty and Bond is proposing to design the water and the wastewater infrastructure in its entirety. The only thing that is not hitting 100% is the sewer pump station, which they are proposing to design to 90%. And the only reason for that is because we don't have a location. So there are too many unknowns for them to hang their hat on 100% design when they don't know if we'll be dealing with ledge, what the building will look like, how we have to handle the wet well, and things of that nature. So 90% still gets the core of the building designed, and the 10% will be mostly due to the geography. So my hope tonight, Mr. Chairman, is that the board will authorize the town manager to move forward and enter into a contract with Ty and Bond to move this project forward.
Steve, Maureen, questions?
At this time, I always will sign for more money.
I know it's, there's obviously a lot of information in the packet. I've made it through most of it. I'm probably going to reread it again, but looks obviously a large contract for a large scope of work. And again, we're basically spending grant money.
Yeah.
So
all right.
I'm good with it.
Okay, very good. I will entertain a motion.
I got it. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town manager to execute a contract with Ty and Bond for the engineering and design services for water and sewer infrastructure in Milford Road and in support of the town's award under the MassWorks infrastructure program in the amount of $275,000 as outlined in the proposal for engineering services Governor's Landing Design dated February 1st, 2023.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries by unanimous
Thank you.
action. Thank you, Mr. Westigate.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Yep. Let's see. Next up, we have the contract for the Worcester Regional Retirement System. Kenny, you're here. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
Yes. How is everybody?
Very good. Very good. Good to see you.
Thank you, and yourself?
Thank you. So through the chair, Attorney Sacco provided a letter outlining the COLA increase, a PERAC memo, and the law signed by former Governor Baker. So the Worcester Regional Retirement Board, they approved a one-time additional 2% COLA increase in December of 2022. Your consideration this evening is a one-time additional COLA increase of 2% based on a COLA base of $16,000 annually. The additional COLA increase of 2% is retroactive to July 1st, 2022, and that equates an additional $320 to each town retiree. The Worcester Regional Board has already approved a 3% COLA increase that equates to $480 to each town retiree. So the total for each retiree with the 3% and the 2% for a total of 5% would be $800. So based on the formula that PERAC provided as far as calculating additional potential liability, I calculated an estimate of $96,000 of additional liability to the town, and this is based off 30 retirees if this is approved. The results will need to be given to the Worcester Regional Retirement System, and there will need to be 34 towns that approve the COLA increase in order for it to be moved forward. And through the letter, my understanding that the 24 and 25 appropriation assessment will not be affected. However, there will be an impact to the pension assessment from fiscal year 26 to 36. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Italian?
I pretty much need to echo my sentiments that I brought about at our last meeting when this item came up. I've been inundated by unhappy residents, large scale tax increases across the board from everyone I spoke to, including myself when I opened up my tax bill. And again, this is cumulative. Once you appropriate that additional 2%, that becomes now the base. So that's going to compound each and every year. So I'm a no on this. I read through the information. I understand everybody's feeling the impacts of inflation, but I've got to stand by the residents. I got to be a no on this one.
Maureen?
I would have to agree with Steve.
Okay. I will, excuse me. I just have a couple of questions for myself. One is, do we have a sense of how many of the towns have approved or denied this request?
I would say we don't know, but a lot of the colleagues, a lot of people I've talked to, I've only heard support. I haven't heard anything, just because as what Selectman Matalian just mentioned, because of inflation, how it has affected retirees. I mean, it's affected everybody. But I have, just based on conversations with my colleagues, I've heard everyone's in support of it. I think some communities, they may not do the full 5. They may do something less. They may do 4. But what's in front of you is the 5%, and it's an additional 2%. And this is just a one-time 2%. And just so you're aware, the 3% that is voted by the board and the Worcester Regional Retirement Board, and that's done annually, and they approve that. But anything above the 3%, that will have to come in front of you, just so you're aware. And that's why they're looking for approval for that additional 2%.
Mm-hmm. And the 2%, I'm hearing both that it's one time, but that it's from 26 to 36. So is it adding to sort of a base calculation, right? Is it like if I get a salary increase of 5% this year, next year it's 3% on my salary, which includes the 2%, so it's kind of there in perpetuity. Is that different here?
It is very different. So it's not based off their salary when they retired. It's based off a COLA base. So that's $16,000. That's based off an estimate of what the average Social Security benefit paid to a Massachusetts resident. So that's because if it was based off their 3 highest years or based off their salary, the liability would be enormous. So it's just based off a COLA base of $16,000. So it's just a one-time. It's not rolling. So in fiscal year 24, there will be another vote, and that amount would be the 3%, and it would be $320, and that's it. And it's not a rolling amount. This is just based off the cost of living adjustment, just a COLA.
Right, but the benefit isn't just a 1-year benefit to the retirees. It sounds like it pays out. Is that what pays out from 26 to 36, or does it pay out all next year? Like, how does that get distributed?
So it's retroactive to July 1st. So the 3% has already been received by the retiree, which was $480. So the only benefit they would receive would be a one-time payment of $320, and then next year the board, I don't want you to get confused. So the Worcester Regional Retirement Board would vote again 3% off the $16,000, but not the 2%, unless there was some special law, some special legislation to do so. But the 26 to 36 that I'm referring to, that's what's going to impact the town to take on that liability, because the 3%, that's already, so the assessment that is budgeted each year, that 3% is already cooked into the amount that the town pays to the Worcester Regional Retirement System. The 2% is not cooked into the liability. So that liability will be paid by the town between fiscal years 26 to 36. So that's the impact to the town.
Got it. So the retirees would receive the incremental 2% benefit for, I'm just going to use air quotes, this year only. Correct. But the town gets to distribute that $96,000 over a 10-year period from 26 to 36, nothing for the next couple of years.
You got it.
Got it.
That's
okay.
Perfect. You got it.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. That wasn't clear to me. So, okay, I will entertain a motion.
Okay. I move that the board vote to deny the additional 2% cost of living adjustment as requested by the Worcester Regional Retirement System, WRRS, pursuant to Chapter 269 of the Acts of 2022, and authorize the town manager to prepare a letter notifying WRRS of the board's vote.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Myself. Vote carries by majority action. Next on the agenda, we have the town. Thank you, Mr. Costa. Really appreciate your time and information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Town manager report.
So first, before diving into the report, just want to thank a couple of staff people who really volunteered some of their own time to resolve issue over the weekend. Chief Michael Bradley, Chief Michael Marchand, as well as our ESS Director, Hank Gunderson. We had a power outage that was originally expected to last 18 to 24 hours on Saturday, and with the assistance of everyone, opened up the senior center as a warming center, got the word out. Police went door to door to all those residents, let them know. Fortunately, and we were told that the transformer that had blown was in short supply, and they didn't know if they could locate. That's why they were originally estimating 18 to 24 hours. And with the cold that was being experienced on Saturday, that was something that a lot of residents could have been negatively impacted. So fortunately, National Grid was able to locate one and get the repair done, so the power was restored by about 5:30. But it was great to work with everyone to get the center prepared so that if people did need it, we could respond. The cold temperatures that was experienced, we did have a lot of calls that came in as far as burst pipes, and we didn't avoid it either. There was an issue at the fire station where heating system air intake got frozen open. It basically froze out a valve. They did have a pipe burst, and on Saturday they were trying to repair that and clean up the water. And so this was a brutal freeze for the most part. That was the only impact that was experienced. Nothing at town hall. Police was out for a little bit, but again, they at least didn't have any sort of issue with being able to get heat back. So want to thank everyone for their cooperation and work and getting the center open. Some important things for residents coming up. Water and sewer bills are going to be mailed out the week of February 13th. Payments, we are changing how we're handling the payments. We have a service called Lockbox where payments are mailed to a third-party company who then receive those payments and process it. This will have a huge impact on streamlining and simplifying the receipt of payments within our Treasurer Collector's Office. Treasurer Collector's Office worked with the Water Department and Sewer Department personnel in order to make sure that we could do the service. Also, excise bills are going to be going out February 24th and due 30 days later, later on in March. Conservation Department is working with Five Forks Farm on an irrigation pond to support their operations. As we know from over the summer, seeing a little spot on the Today Show, definitely they have a great operation, something that's well known not only in the region but also countrywide, and this just allows them to continue with their operation. Conservation as well as Code Department continue to work on receiving some complaints. Specifically, they were dealing with one on removal of stone and ledge noise complaints that have been now resolved. Even though we had that deep freeze, DPW is now taking advantage of our lack of snow. They're doing some deferred maintenance that they hadn't been able to do, as well as some tree removal activities. And even today, people may have noticed they were out picking up litter, something you're usually not doing because we should have a little bit more snow on the ground right now. They continue to fill potholes. The weather that we have been having really leads to reoccurrence of potholes. They're out 2 to 3 times a week filling them. If any residents do have any potholes they should contact or that they're aware of, they should contact the DPW office to make them aware. Town clerk's office is processing town census forms and dog licenses, and for those who are interested in serving on an elected board, nomination papers are out. There are 18 seats open, and as we discussed at a recent meeting, some of these are remainder terms so that, for example, Board of Assessors, while we appointed someone to fill in until the May election, there's 1 year left on one of those seats in addition to a 3-year term that is up. So we have many of those recreation, Board of Health that are that way as well. Town clerk's office is also working to coordinate ethics and open meeting law trainings. This is something that's required by employees and board members every 2 years. The state is opening up a new portal to allow for employees and board members to do the training through the town's website, and then they're keeping track of things and notifying the town so you don't have to print out your certificates and provide them to the town clerk. The assessors have been handling abatements. Abatements were due by February 1st. Total of 62 abatements were received, which represents about 1.8% of the town parcels. The board is meeting with each applicant to review the abatement submissions that were received by the office. Elder and Social Services, I mentioned about how opened up the center on Saturday. They continue to work with assistant requests for heat and other services. And their eye is to spring on getting ready for their move to the new community center. For the police department, as the board knows, and as exemplified by last week, we continue to fill positions. We are essentially, the police department is now fully staffed. We have one officer that is in the academy and should be joining us in April. Fire department, though, does have some challenges filling some open vacancies for a paramedic position. Those are really hard to fill. By having those positions not filled, it does lead to higher overtime use and, runs the risk of some shifts may not be able to be staffed by on-call people. For the code department, they continue to get calls, basically investigating complaints, and one most notable complaint that they are acting on is the TIP project in the center of, in West Upton. And specifically when the state's contractor were picked up in the fall and left for the winter, there's a lot of ADA issues. There's poles that are still in the middle of crosswalks, most notably across by the BP station. That's there. The code department did submit a notice of violation with ADA compliance.
Yeah.
Board of Health is coordinating.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Try to interrupt the flow. Are they gonna? I assume that they're gonna, they don't think they're done, right? They're just waiting for the spring. Okay.
No.
Because they got to cap that, they got to clean it all up. It's just that
There's still a lot of work that needs to be done.
it's
Dennis.
punchless stuff, but it's got to be resolved. So.
Exactly.
Okay.
That letter from the code department, we know at least it was received because the contractor got in touch with Dennis Westgate to basically say, I know it's an issue, we're going to be back.
Yeah.
But they have to wait more closer into spring to get that done.
Thank you.
Board of Health is coordinating a COVID clinic on March 4th. The state has identified this area as an area where there's low booster rates. So they are incentivizing people by giving out $75 gift certificates. So if people either need to get a second shot or a booster and they're looking for a little incentive, the state's trying to get that done. Board of Health is working with schools to nail down a location and look for more information very soon on that. Library is another, in addition to Elder and Social Services, that is looking at preparing for the move to the new community center. Sort of tied to that, the library director noted that interior finishes should be completed by the end of the month and furniture will start arriving in March. We are identifying a sort of tentative soft opening date of May 1st. Knock on wood, that is the goal everyone is shooting for. The contractor has other jobs they need to be on. Our OPM has other jobs that they need to be on. Everyone wants to get this project done. For the planner, one of the main things that they're working on is also MBTA communities compliance. Recently submitted an action plan, which then identifies a timeline for how we're going to develop zoning to comply with that legislation. Just as a reminder, the legislation requires, and it's not a requirement, but to be certified as an MBTA community, you have to identify and zone for 150 units of new multifamily housing, much better than the original 750 that the original legislation guidance documents had Upton needing to accommodate. And that we're going to look at probably the February meeting for planner to come in front of the board to talk about housing choice designation, so that we can submit that application to the state. That also is another opportunity for accessing grant funds to support housing initiatives. Lastly, HR.
Just one question on that, Joe.
Yeah.
Does that have to be filed by this December 31st or next year?
2024.
2024.
So we still have some time.
Are you talking about the MBTA community?
Yeah,
That's December 24th.
Correct.
Okay, and then you said they reduced, just to reinforce that, they reduced the density requirement from 750 to 150.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And sort of closing out this what seems like it was a long 9 months worth of hiring. We're looking at bringing on the final department specialist that will be supporting planning and conservation. And also we're in the process of hiring drivers for the new van that we just received. And Sandy is starting to work with Maria in the recreation department for hiring for kids at play. So that's then into the summer with all of that effort. So lots are going on this winter, and especially as we're working with preliminarily working on the FY24 budget and finalizing the town meeting warrant.
good.
Anything?
Very good.
Just quick comment and then one fast question, and that's all I got. So a quick comment, I was going to say, based upon the weather, based upon the extreme cold and the winds that they were projecting, I know it's unfortunate for the folks on Crockett Road, but I think townwide, we're very fortunate that we only had that amount of power outages.
That much wind.
Yeah, that much wind, that type of cold, you think of how, how they can negatively impact so many different areas of town. So I think we got very lucky there, all things considered.
There was a small section that had power outage at Upton Ridge, but that was due to a transformer that blew in Northbridge. So they're on that sort of circuit for Bronx.
And then the other question I had was, you had mentioned that the Board of Health was considering doing, or planning on doing, I should say, booster clinic.
Yes.
Do they have a rough timetable? Would that be the month of March? Sometime?
March 4th.
Oh, March 4th.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have public input. Anybody here to provide or share any public comment? Ms. Woden.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chair Seamus, for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I saw on the agenda that you were going to be looking at the town warrant, and I didn't know if this was an opportunity to talk a little bit about the citizens petition. So that's why I decided to come. And then unsure if I'd be able to have a chance to speak about it. That's why I wrote you this morning. So I hope you all got that email. Yes, great.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
why don't
then,
you take a couple of minutes and go through your petition. That would be a great opportunity to share the information, but also just for the record, let us know your name and address.
Right, sorry. Lori Woden, 7 Nelson Street, right here in Upton. The citizens petition is to sort of put a hold on new installations for wireless, basically until the FCC fulfills its court-mandated requirement to update its standards, because we're using 1996 radiation standards. The background for it is that they created these standards in 1996 based on exposure to men who were 6'2". And now we know that everybody uses cell devices and everybody uses computers. Most especially children are using them greatly in schools. And they were asked to update their standards in 2019. They decided to go with the original standards from 1996 and not update them. And so the FCC was sued. And they lost the suit, and they were mandated to study all the science that has been done, independent studies that were peer-reviewed, and also to study all the testimony that had been given, and they haven't done that. And so our town officials are asked to make rulings if we're applied to for having updated cell service using these old standards. And there's an enormous body of evidence that's beginning to show harm. And so we thought that if we could put a little hold on that and just take a minute to educate people about this background, we could make better decisions going forward. Part of the situation is this. For 4G, as you all know, cell towers were far away on a hill. And it was a long, slow wave that by the time it got to us, it was quite diffuse. And the towers were not in the rights of way. But for the new technology that's coming, the small cell antennas are going to be put on telephone poles right outside our doors. And so it could be right outside the door of somebody with a small child or a baby or a pregnant woman or a senior or an immunocompromised person. So we want to have it's supposed to be up to the communities to decide this, but they're making more and more restrictions that make it more difficult.
Yeah, great.
That said, we know that in Upton, there are areas of town where there is not good cell service and we need it. So we want to amend this citizens petition, and that's the intention. We are hoping to ask the planning board to work with us at the hearing to get this into a format that we can have at town meeting, and then hopefully we can amend it so we can get cell service where we need it and not have oversaturation where we don't. We've come to find out that towns are told that they may need 120 cell towers when they may only need 3, and we wouldn't know. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
You bet. Any other public comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Next up, we have an appointment to the Cultural Commission, Cultural Council, for Shelley Glassman. I'm guessing Shelley is not on the phone. Okay. So Miss Glassman is a retired math teacher who is a fiber artist and musician. She sings and plays several musical instruments. She believes her interests and skills are well suited for the Cultural Council, and her math background could be helpful with bookkeeping or the like. She's interested in being more involved in the community now that she's retired. She's also passionate about the arts and music, and thinks this would be a great way to volunteer for the community. Do you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
How many positions are on this? Just the one?
There's many
Many?
openings still.
Yeah, I think our last appointment,
What?
Huh?
Cindy, I'm sorry, did you ask how many positions were open?
Were available.
Many.
Many. Okay.
On the
think
Cultural Council,
yeah,
right.
so-
It's an understaffed
Yeah.
group. Yeah, so they need help.
I think the last appointment we made, I had heard from one of the members that gave them a quorum. So they certainly need more members.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think obviously her, as you mentioned, Brett, her qualifications are great.
Yeah.
It's always nice to get somebody to step forward and serve on the community. So it's from where I'm sitting, it's all good.
All good for me also.
All right, fantastic. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Shelley Glassman as a full member on the Cultural Council for the remainder of 1-year term to expire June 30th, 2023.
I would second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries by unanimous action. Next up, we have the review of the draft annual town meeting warrant and the article meeting schedule.
So, for the board, I had prepared a draft of the town meeting warrant and included it on the website as a revised meeting packet. The warrant reflects articles that were submitted by town staff, drafted by town staff, boards, as well as 2 citizens petition articles. I did anticipate that we would have identify a date to then have people come in, the proponents, so that you can have a presentation and talk about those, so they can take more formal position or vote on the articles for inclusion. I figured tonight was basically just a run through so that at least you can start to get it and you can start preparing for those future meetings. As sort of a quick run through, there's 38 articles. We may have to vote to open and close the warrant, for example. Just found out that there's a prior year bill that we'll have to actually add. It's short money, but it was from the cable studio, and that wouldn't hit our say budget. That would come out of the PEG fund that they collect from people fees assessed to users within town. So Article 1, just town meeting reports or town officer reports. 2 would be our general operating budget. 3 would be water enterprise. 4 would be the sewer wastewater enterprise. 5 ends up being authorized revolving funds. I do have to make a correction to the Recreation Commission. They're revolving the accounts for 260 rather than 270,000 rather than 260,000 as what's printed here. Article 6 is the PEG access cable related fund.
Is that the new number? If I can interrupt you for just a second, if we roll include them. I think last year was that 77,200?
Correct. It was 77. One of the things that is being proposed in this under capital outlay is an extra 20 to try to improve this room for sound and improve video for meetings and for production going out to not only our cable channel, but then also for our YouTube station. So ordinarily that would be the 77. That needs to be corrected in that article right there. I just saw that. Article 7 per our financial policy transfers 160,000 into stabilization fund. Article 8, which then I would anticipate we'd have a discussion, would take some of the free cash and transfer it to town capital acquisition, capital improvement stabilization fund. Article 9 would then transfer money for OPEB. 10 standard chapter 90. Article 11 would be for construction of roads. 12 would be if we do have a deficit for snow and ice, that article would cover it. The next series of articles end up, Article 5 is standard for 5,000 for conservation. Next set of articles are CPC related. Article 14A is a standard allocation of CPC funds to the reserve accounts. B is then for administrative purposes with CPC, and then C is our bond debt payment, debt service for town hall renovations. We did receive a request through TPC for 5,000 for Upton Historical Commission for a new sign at Beveridge Park. Article 16 is a request from Lakes and Ponds for 50,000 for Mill Pond as part of the Mill Pond, Pratt Pond management effort that we actually had an article at special town meeting to do an initial part of that study. This would be that second part of the study that would be done. They're also from Conservation Commission and Stewardship. They're looking for CPC funds for bridge on Warren Brook at the Robinson Family Conservation Restriction. They are applying for a Mass Trails grant. So that if they are successful, then we wouldn't need this full amount, but very often for some of these, it's reimbursement. So you get the funding and then anything that then we get, we can turn that back to CPC. Article 18, historical commission, it shouldn't be Historical Society in the article language, I'll correct that. They're requesting $25,000 to allow for historic infrastructure preservation. For example, if we did need to do something for an emergency repair, they'd like to be able to have money to do that. An example is right across the street at Holy Angels. We did do a quick repair, but budget was one of those things that was a concern. If it ended up being above 5,000, realistically, it probably wouldn't have had money in order to do that. So they were looking for some funds to give them a little bit of flexibility. Article 19 would be looking for funds for paving at police and fire station. Once we have our meeting and have the police and fire chiefs in to talk about the request, they'll get into more detail on the reason why they're requesting that. Article 20 is $50,000 for repair and replacement of the concrete ramp at the police station. That is identified on our capital facilities plan. Both that and the paving are identified on our capital facilities plan as something that's needed. Our Article 21, and these next ones are basically on our capital budget plan. Just so you know, the Capital Budget Committee is going to be meeting on Monday, February 27th to go over all these as well. So the first one is Article 21, $125,000 for purchase of replacement 1-ton dump truck for a highway. Article 22, $65,000 for replacement of DPW director vehicle. Article 23, $150,000 for a roadside mower. One of the things here is that currently, in previous years, we have been contracting out mowing of some of our rights of way. We weren't able to actually, the person who normally did it was not available to do it this past summer. So we had to do some ourselves, but a lot of rights of way did not actually get mowed. The contract price is going up to $25,000 for this coming season. And again, it's not going to cut every single street, but because of the lead time for equipment, we sort of need to have both $25,000 to do it this year, because it could take portion of a year or up to a year for a roadside mower. The roadside mower would allow for us to do that in-house, and within a couple of years would essentially pay for itself. Article 24, $12,000 for a mower for parks and cemeteries. This is to replace one of two 2014 mowers. Article 25 is coming through for a wastewater treatment facility, replacement of sand filtration system. Article 26, $120 for refurbishing Pratt Hill water tank and including the ladder for that tank. 27 is $69,000. This is a placeholder. We are currently developing and finalizing a plan for covering the services that were incurred through the Treasurer Collector's Office due to staff shortages. So this is one that we may end up not needing for town meeting, because we're trying to make sure that we can accommodate that by other means. 28 is $30,000 for a large format scanner plotter within the land use departments. 29 is standard article for $10,000 for Board of Assessors recertification. 30 is $40,000 for comp and class review. The last one was done and completed in 2016. However, as we've seen over the last year, and especially because of COVID, our compensation and classification plan really needs to be reviewed to brought up to date as part of not only succession planning, but also making sure that we're properly staffed and employees compensated. 31 EDC is proposing $35,000 for a feasibility study for a pedestrian bridge across Center Brook. 32. This is a for all of you who may have used Uber or Lyft. That fee that you're assessed actually goes to the state, and then for trips that are ride shares within towns, the towns get that money. It's not much, but we do have to appropriate that. So this article appropriates those funds that were received. It's only $308. It's not much. But hey, every cent counts. 33 is placeholder for accepting donation of property at Assessor's Map 28, parcel 17. This is the one the board has had a couple meetings on about the donation of land. 34, which was requested by the animal control officer, added language to specify what was considered being under the control of owner, namely adding language saying, inserting hunting dog appropriately trained and then continuing with the rest of that section. 25 is a request that came through from the ZBA chair to increase the total number of ZBA members from 3 to 5. And then the remaining two are citizens petition, 36 and 37. 36 is to see if the town of Upton will maintain possession of Knowlton Racine building, current future asset of the town. And then 37 is the 5G small cell facility amendment that Ms. Logan had spoken to. So lots of things. Things will probably fall off as we go through the process and speak about things. But that's the initial kind.
Thank you. Questions at this point? Lots to discuss. when it's time to discuss it.
Right.
When do we want to discuss it is the question.
Article 30. What are the unappropriated funds in the town treasury? The 40,000.
You're talking about what is the total amount?
No, what? Well, it says appropriate from available unappropriated funds in the town treasury is 40,000 for the classification and compensation plan review.
Well, it should have been from available funds. The unappropriated should not have been, that word should not have been in there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know where it went.
We found it in the couch cushions.
Yeah.
Right.
Floating in cyberspace, right? Article, just a quick question.
Yeah.
Article 9,
Yes.
the $100,000 for OPEB. That's typically in the budget. So did we take it back out of the budget and plug it in as a warrant article?
So right now it's written to give us flexibility that it could come out of the operating budget or certainly come out as free cash. So it's once we get closer and we finalize it, we can then identify the exact source. One of the challenges with many of these is that normally in years past, except for when there's a new administration, the board has reviewed the warrant after you've had the budget meetings. Here, because the governor is not releasing the budget until March 1st, and the schools then need about a week to try to adjust their budgets, and I'm told by BVT, they won't have a final vote until March 24th. We're going to have to make some changes from some of our initial proposed budgets. And this just reflects that once we sort of go through that process, we may have to then identify exactly where this is coming in later on or as part of motions rather than saying it up front. So it's rather than really being deliberate and going through the budget. And then when we review the warrant, we know exactly where it's coming from. This is going to be sort of a mad rush through March and April as we sort of look
But
at
that
things.
OPEB is typically part of the operating budget, but not put in as an article, right?
Years ago, we did it this way, then
Yeah.
we put it into our basic budget format.
Right.
So it was right in the budget as
Yeah.
opposed to an article. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, I believe at this point. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Why it's back on.
Let's take this flexibility, because if it does come out of, general fund, it's the same, it's then hitting the same source, because we then would just identify that in a motion. This just gives us flexibility in case we had to think a little differently.
So you're gonna, okay.
But by pulling it out of the operating budget, you're basically freeing up $100,000 in the operating budget that sort of.
If you're levying the limit, yes.
That's
If
what
you don't
that's
leave-
my, right. Well, that's my concern, is that we sort of add the article and just that money just gets spent and spread somewhere else. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, now we're kind of just increased taxes by $100,000 without anybody knowing.
Right, we've stepped backwards, right?
So that's my only concern. So we just need to be mindful of how we handle that.
Good.
We don't want to pull stuff out of the operating budget that's typically in the operating budget unless we're reducing the operating budget by that amount.
Right, yeah.
Can I make a suggestion too about doing the budget? I was wondering if we could get together, Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee at the same time, because seeing how we're so far out with the budget. Instead of having one meeting for the Finance Committee and then having one meeting for the Selectmen.
Yeah, we talked about
And
that was.
Jared had mentioned something about what was it, super what?
Well, so one of the things, because of the fact that we're not going to be finding out things from the schools until March, realistically, in order to react to their budgets, push back to their budgets, and to basically discuss with boards and departments their requests. I had mentioned, I think I mentioned it maybe to everyone, that we hold basically a super Saturday where then you start at 9 o'clock and you just bring everyone in, half income there, and go through it all in one morning. One, at least compared to dividing it up across 2 different weeks, everything's fresh and you can make some fun recommendations. But March is going to be busy for us, and hopefully I'm just being overly cautious, thinking it's going to be a lot busier than maybe it won't be. But that would be my recommendation, that we look at that. Also, I realized I didn't hit send because I drafted an email to you and the FinCom about seeing about availability next Wednesday to meet for basically a FY24 workshop to basically go over some of the revenue projections, what we're seeing for general trends, where sort of on a high level the budget is working out to be. So we can talk about some of the pressures that we're under, not only internally, but also externally. So we can at least get something out there that we're just not sitting waiting for the schools. We're being very proactive, working with departments, working with staff. It's just the unknowns associated with the school are just that, they're unknowns, and they could have significant impacts on what departments have asked. So
As a school, I mean, if you don't mind,
Please.
you would think that the school could formulate their budget. Of course, the problem is not knowing what the state compensation is going to be. That's where it's going to really impact the individual municipalities. I mean, I would just wonder how close to that. I mean, obviously they've been having subcommittee meetings, for 6 months now. So you would think they've got to be close as far as what the actual operational budget is. Now the question is, what is the, reimbursement from the state going to be, which is going to impact us?
and if it was something that was like, okay, we'll take last year's, and then if the state increases things by 1.6%, then we know where we are. But it also is the recalculation of the valuations in Mendon and Upton that the state then does, that adds this additional layer that is just unknown. And I asked the question, and basically it's like there's so much variability in what could happen depending on how that ratio works out, that also don't want to sort of guess and then be drastically wrong. And Mendon is just as concerned about this as we are. Myself and Paul Flaherty have been attending each of the subcommittee meetings, trying to get some sort of idea as far as really where things are going to be coming out.
Yeah, the formula's gonna change this year because of per capita income and valuations.
I'm with you. I can't imagine why it's so hard.
Yeah, including at the state level. If you run for governor and you win the seat of governor, you would think you'd have a pretty good idea what the budget is, what your new revenue is, and what you plan on prioritizing,
They
right?
were giving money back on the state taxes.
My only concern is that we run into an 11th hour scramble, as has happened before.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it's, the middle of March or it's the end of March, and all of a sudden the school's asking for an override. I certainly don't expect that to be the case. I can't speak to it. I haven't been to those meetings, but that's my fear. Anytime I see us kicking the can down the road with the schools, we've seen that happen before. It's not a good situation. It catches everybody off guard, and so that's my concern. I understand people are reticent to make forecasts, but it's like give me a best case, an expected case, and a worst case, so that we can at least have something to digest. But as long as it's clear that they're not going to come out of left field with the big surprise, then it is what it is.
I go for the worst scenario. Oh, BVT.
Well,
They
go for
usually-
any scenario.
2 students
Currently
per
got
year from Upton. This year it's 10. That's huge. That is huge.
All right. Anything else on the warrant?
The only thing I was gonna make a comment on, and again, this will be down the road when we discuss it further, and I just can't find the warrant article itself, but a footbridge over the Robertson property for $120,000. We've had multiple presentations, Brad Didio and Alan Rosenfield wanting to put a driveway up to the Stephens Farm property. And I'd just like to see more prioritization towards the Stephens Farm property. We've owned it for 20 odd years.
Yep.
And I don't see anything on here to spend a nickel on Stephens Farm, yet we're immediately gonna just build a footbridge for $120,000. I mean, to me, that's not a good utilization of our CPA funds. So, in my opinion, I don't know where that comes from. Obviously there's other requests in here, other CPA dollars that will be spent, but I just don't understand how that leapfrogs a parcel of land that you bought specifically, not held by conservation, you bought specifically to utilize that land for the enjoyment of Upton residents. And 95% of the residents can't get to the property. I just talked to somebody the other day. They said, I parked at the public garden. I walked up the hill, me and my wife walked up the hill. We tried to get back there and the ground was so wet, we couldn't get there. So, not saying the whole project, bears a lot of fruit, but certainly getting a road and a parking area up onto Stephens Farm, I think would be certainly a step in the right direction and would be a good way to utilize that land. But what do I know?
Anything
I'm not
else?
on CBA.
Could be. You could be.
Right. A lot of open seats. I can.
A lot of open seats. Yeah.
A lot of 2 boards now.
Check the rules. Yeah, exactly.
That's all I got.
All right, very good. Next up, we have an update on the 140 tip project.
So I wanted to have a draft letter for you all to look at, but unfortunately wasn't able to prepare it. One of the things that I do want to send in written comments this week, basically highlighting the need for working with the town. This is for MassDOT to work with the town to formalize on-street parking for the businesses in Upton Center. That's one of the main concerns here, and also looking for because they are taking away 2 of the parking spaces that are on the town parking lot, and looking to see about recreating it within the project area. They have done that for other projects, even outside of the right of way, where they have recreated parking that was lost because of a roadway project. One of the main concerns with then also learning from the TIP project that we're trying to finish is just making sure that the state has processes and personnel in place to try to make sure that ADA compliance gets maintained and we're not dealing with after construction issues the way that we are with the other TIP project. There's still telephone poles that need to be removed in other areas within that TIP project. So that is like one of the concerns is as far as being able to be responsive to make sure that they're on these important elements that do have significant impact and residents being able to access properties up and down the street. The other issue is basically paying a little bit more attention to in front of the community center and facilitating connection between the community center and then whatever roundabout happens. I don't know if there was specific things that the board also wanted to raise as comments. I can easily include those. I'm going to be following up with MassDOT District 3 because that the person who was on the public hearing did specify that it would be happy to work with the town to address these issues.
Good. Those are the main things. I don't know if you had other comments.
Well, just a
have
comment
included.
that I brought up with Joe tonight was that truck coming around that corner where Grove Street.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a little tight.
it is a little tight. It's one of those things that all the curbs are designed to be mountable, but that's a lot of impervious surfaces right in that area. It's important, I think, to be able to have a landscaped area just to allow a little bit of green, but that movement of a larger truck around to then go 140 eastbound, that's going to be challenging.
Yes.
Obviously a very valid comment. If you look at it clearly, that is something that jumps out at you. I would hope that the engineers have compasses and protractors and are pretty good at figuring those things out.
They say they did that for like our largest fire vehicle that they put a template on. Is just making sure that we see very large landscape trucks and trucks with trailers. That's just making sure that
Bigger than our ladder truck?
articulated differently. So
Well, the ladder
getting
truck-
reassurance.
Deleted.
Well,
No, that's fine. I got
the
you.
other-
It's
the
fine.
other
It's
option
fine.
is
I don't
making
wanna
sure
beat
that
that horse.
we then say, you end up directing them to another street. But
You're talking about the hard right-hand turn from 140 onto North Main?
that I'm less concerned
And
about.
then-
The other.
Oh, no.
There's a way to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically,
I
you
would-
turn, but
yeah.
they're gonna be.
I don't drive tandem. I do have a Class B driver's license, but I can tell you that those are made to drive over, and most likely
They're gonna get around
the town, yeah, they're gonna get driven over just as often as they're not.
Yeah.
My neighbor runs heavy equipment wreckers and those long wheelbase, you just can't make that turn.
It's no way.
So
Drive over the stuff.
people are gonna have to figure it out. They're either gonna drive over the curb as they do now,
Yeah.
invade the lane.
Don't
next
put
to them.
nice landscaping in the center of the circle.
And another thing.
Not at all.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
the other thing is then also to make sure that they're using surface treatments that then respect the historic nature of Upton Center.
Yes.
You know, stamped, if you're using asphalt, let's do stamped
Yes.
asphalt, and other things to then add some visual character that at least
Cobblestone.
reflect it.
Use cobblestone, that'll be nice.
Yes, yeah, as far as
Or the
boundaries.
mountain part, yeah.
Yeah, where that is raised as a structure raises, yeah, that's a nice way to finish it.
Yeah.
Really. Just another observation, and for the record, myself and my family own the building at 1 North Main Street. But 3 crosswalks to me is a little redundant in that particular section of road. You would just think something's wrong there. I don't know which one's the redundancy.
It's in like here and here and here.
Yes, on North Main to have 3 crosswalks there, I just think is too much.
Yeah, like I get like having one here and having one there. I don't know why there's two there, but I'm sure somebody does know why.
You know, I'm thinking it would make more sense, and again, you could look at this and maybe tomorrow morning I'd look at it differently.
Yeah.
But I would almost think you'd get rid of the middle one.
Mhm.
But then again, the one closest to the rotary, you know, that's kind of a direct walk over to the parking lot. So I don't know if that makes more sense to keep that one.
Yeah.
You know, the one that's closest to the town hall parking lot and get rid of the middle one. But it would just seem that 3 and relatively, I mean, we've walked that, is that
I would
60 yards maybe?
would love to hear their explanation as to why it was designed that way.
Right. So I would think we'd want to get rid of, you know, that'd be another suggestion I would make is to clean that up a little bit. When you have too many crosswalks, even driving, and you have a crosswalk every 10 yards, you don't know if people are crossing or not.
Right.
You know, it's just, it just gets to be.
And realistically, it's not a long run that you look at where people could be coming and going. It's not that middle one is not that far away that,
I'll tell you,
it really supports being there by itself, and, you know, could see where,
I think it's probably just because there's an existing walkway.
that's exactly why it is.
All right.
So they're just trying to connect the existing.
And
walkway.
if you have a walkway in the common, you don't want to then leave it dead ended. So the question ends up being, even from the
There's not a
town's
walkway.
perspective, you know, would we want to have that removed and just have it grass?
I think they're accommodating what's there now.
And that's something that as a town, we can have that conversation as far as, would we want to see that revert, that just that sidewalk revert to grass?
Right. Because you would think, I would think, you could almost get by with one crosswalk on that side of the road. That's nowhere near as busy over here as it is here and here.
Thinking that.
You're thinking the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems a little bit redundant. And again, I know they're only at the 25% design phase, but, yeah, that might be something we want to talk about.
All right, next up, the order of taking for Summer Circle. This is required board action.
So town council was in the process of trying to finalize, make sure that we had all the documents pulled together to record the plans at the registry of deeds, and realized that we need to execute this document. So in the board's packet, you have the draft. We have the signature page here for the board to sign, and we'll have the town clerk notarize things as well tomorrow, so we can get things off the town council so they can record all the necessary documents.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I can make the motion?
Yep.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute the document entitled Order of Taking for the way known as Summer Circle, as shown on the plan entitled Layout Plan of Summer Circle, Upton, Mass, dated August 17, 2020, prepared by Guerriere and Hellman, Inc., which plan is recorded with the Worcester District Registry of Deeds on January 10, 2017, as Book 924, Plan 58, and as accepted by the November 1st, 2022 special town meeting.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries by unanimous action. And next, we will move to executive session.
Let's see.
One of your minds reading that? I've got it here.
I have it, I can.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I would make a motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Section A, Section 2, 1B, and Mass General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, to conduct strategy and preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, Director of Public Works, and not reconvene in open session. Stephen Matalian, aye.
Maureen Dwinell, I second. Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Thanks, Maggie. Bye. Brett Simus, aye. Motion carries by unanimous action.